Good afternoon. It's 8 o'clock Monday night. You know what that means. It's Dialogue with Dozell. You're on YouTube and Facebook Live. Dialogue with Dozell. We are so happy to see you on this National Siblings Day. Speaking of that, one of my two siblings will be joining shortly. The co-host of this show, KD, Kim Varner, will be with us shortly. Been away for a few weeks. My wife wouldn't let me join the show. It was on the high seas. She said no. So it was another dialogue takeover, and the two Latoyas did it, and man, they did an awesome job. Yay! Shout out to Latoya and Latoya, Madam Producer, and Madam Producer A, who did a shout out to Women's History Month. And what a great job they did. They even shouted out their mother. My Toya shouted out her mother at the very end of it. Great show. And then on last week, my very able, capable, and beautiful cousin, Janice Hazel, dealt with Pan-Africanism, and she did an awesome job. I'm so appreciative to both of them for keeping the dialogue alive when Dozell the dialogue is out there. Okay, thank you for hopping on tonight. Tonight's a serious matter. We boarded on a Saturday, and day three of the ship, day three of the cruise, we were met early that morning with the tragedy of what was going on there in Nashville, Tennessee. And I made up my mind at that point, that's going to be, I already had the show scripted for tonight's show, was scripted, but I made up in my mind right then and there, but we're going to deal again with these mass shootings in America. I know it's not popular because a lot of our guests are, and it's all right, they're right wing Republicans in that demographic tends to like guns and not want to put any restrictions on guns and everything. But I made up my mind right then and there that America is going to have to learn how to deal with this gun situation because it is truly out of control. And well, lo and behold, before I could get tonight's show off the ground, well, here's I got Kim. I'm a little distracted. I'm trying to get him on. Lo and behold, before we could talk about the latest mass shooting, when there were several others. In fact, there was one Saturday or Sunday in South Carolina. Teenagers were shot at and shot. I think 4 were wounded. Thank God none were killed. But I was going to center in on the mass shooting in Nashville at the Christian school, where the Covenant School, where 6 people lost their lives, 3 little babies, and 3 not only the 3 babies, but three other seniors lost their lives. But before I could get there, today, let's take that down because I want to talk about that one a little bit more. Today, early this morning, is my mentor Morning Joe was signing off the air. There came a flash and a breaking news story about a shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was not like what you may have thought it was, a bank robbery. I don't have all of the details. I'm waiting for KV to sign on and kind of help me with some of those details. But from what I understand, it was not a robbery. What it was a mass shooting with a disgruntled employee who had gone into and he shot and killed 4 people earlier. He killed 4 people, and I think a 5th one is in extremely critical condition. And I'm just wondering, the first time we tackled this issue on our promo poster, well, we're on both Facebook and YouTube. Facebook took our promo poster down because it listed AR-15s, and I specifically asked what was America's fascination with weapons of mass destructions. And so we lost the we lost. I'm still trying to get Kim on. Um, we lost. We lost. We lost the poster. They took the poster down. They just took the poster down, and that was when we went to do that show on America's Love with Mass Destructions. So now, and excuse me, I'm trying to do two things here. So trying to get KV on. So they took our poster down, our promo poster, because they had listed AR-15s on the poster, on the promo poster. And so now that was how you can't even count. That was just a few months ago. But it was it's just a few months ago. But they took the poster down, and so we kind of cleaned up the show so there would be no graphic, nothing graphic or anything. Kim, we try. I've sent it to your text. Let me send it to Donna's phone. Let me try. I sent it to your phone. Let me try sending it to your. And Toya just sent it. Let me just try sending it. I'm gonna send it to your Facebook Messenger. Let's do it that way. So they took it down. So we kind of watered down the show. I'm getting my bearings back when Madam Producer gets Kim on. We watered down the show a little bit when we talked about it, and I purposely didn't get too in depth, but as some of the promos for tonight's show have indicated, I'm taking the gloves off. I'm taking the gloves off. No more skirting around issues. No more letting things go. No more trying to be Mr. Politically Correct. No more trying not to offend a segment of our fandom. I'm just calling it as the IS is for now on, because it's out of control. Last night I couldn't sleep, and at about 5 o'clock this morning I was looking at Way Too Early with Jonathan Lemire. I was looking at his show, and somebody came on the show and said, "Do you know that this time last week, actually it should have been 2 weeks ago?" He said, "Do you know that this time 2 weeks ago that 3 little kids were on the verge of being awakened for school, and there was a gentleman that was on his way, that three adults that were on their way to heading to school, and they were getting ready to go to work, and that they would not return." And that just hit, and it was so poignant. I don't want to get too graphic in talking about that shooting, because all of them involves kids, but most of them involves kids. But yeah, that was just, I'm trying to catch my bearings because we're still trying to get my brother on. It was just very, very difficult, because now people are talking about, kids are saying, "Dad, do I have to go to school? Mom, will you pick me up if you hear anything happening there?" And this was something that that not only my group, not only my age, my generation, but the generation, our children, just one generation below us, that was something that was just happening. Columbine, it just started happening, and it is just the absolute saddest thing. When I was a school teacher, we used to do we went from doing fire drills and bomb drills and all other kind of drills, and we ended up doing mass shooting drills. And quite honestly, now that I'm retired, I don't mind saying it. I would, doing these drills, seeing these kids get down on their knees and almost bend over like little sacrificial lambs. And I'm not a guy that, tears are something I don't deal with a whole lot. But it would be the saddest thing in the world for me to see those kids, my students, or students that, even as a PE teacher, seeing those students and sitting there and seeing them having to go through that drill and imagining what it would be like if a day ever occurred in that school where they actually had to get down and do that. I made a conscientious decision, and that was before this clown became governor and started talking about arming teachers. I made a decision that all of this stuff, all of this passive stuff, I was going to make sure the kids were as safe as you could make them, but I was not going to sit there and be a sitting duck. I had already had a game plan on a distraction technique and everything. And if I was going to go down, I was going to go down fighting. It wasn't going to be armed, was not going to bring a gun into school, but I was going to go down school. I had distractions in every classroom. I knew how to distract a possible shooter, and that was going to be my only opportunity, so that rather than just be sitting there as a sacrificial lamb. Henry says, I believe it's a government setup. Henry, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that in just a second, because those theories are certainly out there. So here we were with the mass shootings in the schools and doing the drills. And I'm thinking, I actually was in a school when a shooting occurred in a nearby store, and the gunman ran through the school, and one of our security people approached him, and he turned around and pointed the gun at him, and then he turned around and dropped the gun and continued to run through the school. It was not a mass shooting of sorts, but it was one coming through. That was before we started locking campuses down to avoid things such as this. And it kept on happening until in 2017, 2018, one day I was leaving. I don't know what's going on with Kim. We can't get him on. Madam Producer, would you give him a call and see what we can do? I was really depending on him being here. I've sent it to his phone several times, and would you just see if you can call him and see what we need to do to get him in this show? I was really depending on his experience and everything. So there we were, and there we were dealing with these incidents. And as many of you know, I coach high school football, and our last game of the regular season that year was against Strowman Douglas, and the big offensive line coach and their athletic director were the last two hands that I shook that night. I shook both of their hands that night, and we were like the last two people on the field. Actually, before they turned off the lights, for some reason we were late leaving, and we were just out there talking. And lo and behold, I'm in a different school. I'm in a different school, and I started getting texts about mass shootings, about a shooting at one of our schools, and then it was determined that it was Douglas, and Strowman Douglas, a school where I had just been on the football field less than 2 months prior to. And then we started hearing that several people had possibly been shot. And so we all watched the news. I choose to look at the local national news. We all watched the news that night. And then all of a sudden we get the notice that 18 people had perished, 17 people had perished in that school. And it was like our mouths were open because this hit home. We knew these people. I had just shook hands with two of these people who lost their lives 2 months earlier. I just shaking their hands. We played Strowman Douglas last year, and we played Strowman Douglas last year, and I took a picture of the building, and it was right before the sentencing was to take place. And I took a picture. One of the school security guards came up to me, and I guess she thought it was disrespectful. And I let her know that I was, in fact, a school board employee and my attachment to it. And that's a picture that I would not share on here, but it was the building, and I'm I am assuming it's going to be torn down. Why you're saying all this? I'm saying all this when things like this hits home, when you hear kids asking questions, and then all of a sudden it hits home, and then there you are, Madam Producer. Let's go to a commercial if we could, and I'm gonna come right back. I wanna see if I can get Kim. I was really depending on him being here. Let's see if we can get him, please. GoGigaWorld.com. They're the ones who make me look good. And if they can make me look good, they'll certainly make you look good, because you might not have some of the disadvantages that I have to work with. GoGigaWorld.com. You definitely want to sign them up to do all of your virtual production. The pandemic's over, but we're still doing things. It changed life. We're going to do a show on the after effects of the pandemic in the upcoming month or two. But they cornered the market on how to present us and how to make us look good and how to produce virtual programming. And you certainly want to attach yourself to GoGigaWorld.com. They'll make things work well with you. I just talked to Kim. He's going to be on in just a second. So I was saying that it really hit home. Henry says it is a coincidence that it has been too frequent with no law changes. Oh, we're going to get into that, and Kim and I probably have some different perspectives on that, and so we're going to get into that, and we're going to actually talk about that. We're going to talk about what a law. Henry, that's a great point, man. You're absolutely correct. It's beyond reason. That's what it is. It's beyond reason. We can't even fathom it anymore, that this continues to happen in this nation. I want you to put the Children of Covenant School back up again, if you would. And I want our audience to see just how pitiful it is. We want to get that slide of those kids up, and I want to talk a little bit more about how sad that was as an educator, as a public school educator. Covenant School was actually a private school. So let's see it. Yeah, let's see. Can we get that? KB, what's up, man?
Hey, man, what's happening?
All right, you know you got to do it. This National Siblings Day, man. What great fraternity are you and I part of, man?
Simply put, V3.
So you would yeah, okay, so I'll be serious doing this show. We'll talk about that a little later. Can you imagine that being one of your children? Or can you imagine that being somebody that you know? Or can you just think that that's somebody's child? If your child is not, if you don't have children of that age anymore, they once were, and can you imagine them walking away like that, trying to escape a mass shooter? It is the saddest thing in the world. The Parkland shooting, which hit so close to home with us, we saw the kids, because they were high school kids, and it was obvious that it was a high school shooter that did it. It was a high school student that perpetrated the crime. You can take it down. Thank you. Those kids were walking out with their hands over their heads like this because they were being checked to make sure that they, in fact, were not the shooter, and everybody was being checked out. It was the most pitiful scene you'd ever seen. Kim, I was just telling the audience how sad it was for me to see when we used to have to do the mass shooting drills when I was a teacher, and see those kids bent over so vulnerable, not for a tornado, not avoiding a tornado or hurricane effects or any natural disaster, but some person coming through with a weapon that's designed to kill an elephant or something, a darn elephant, and they come in to kill our kids. And so we're just kind of talking about uh, the shootings in the schools and why our laws so lax about that?
So one thing I want to add while you're talking about school shootings and shooters coming in those areas like that. One thing I want to add is if you're ever in that area, if you've never gone through that drill before, the training of it before anything, um, and you're actually a victim of an active shooter, if you're in that situation, when the officers arrive and somebody has been shot that could be related to you or whatever, you immediately want that officer to come render first aid. That officer is not going to render first aid. He's going to keep moving and go towards eliminating the threat. That's his main objective when he arrives at the scene, is to stop the threat. So don't run up grabbing that officer because he don't know if you're the shooter or who you are. If you could be the shooter that may have thrown your gun down or whatever. Best thing to do is have your hands up in the air with your palms open, your palms facing him where he can see that there's nothing inside your hands or whatever as he continues to move towards that threat. There are three things that you do in the event of an active shooter. That's run, hide, and fight. But once that officer gets on the scene, make sure that you don't run up there, thinking that he's coming to rescue you, which he is, but you can't run up there grabbing that officer, asking for help or whatever the case may be, because he has one objective in mind and he's going to keep moving towards that threat. He's not going to stop to assist you. So, and it can be dangerous to you also approaching that officer, because like I said, he gets there. He don't know if that active shooter may have changed shirts or whatever the case may be. He has a description. He's looking for that person. He's going towards him. So the best thing to do is just fall back and let him do his job. So.
Well, thanks for and when you're giving those instructions, Kim, I'm like thinking, man, nobody ever going to be a part of nobody's going to ever be around when a mass shooting takes place. But they're happening so often now that the chances that one of our viewers, the chances have so drastically increased, and I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. It's crazy. Kim, I know there's a few years between us. When you were in school, tell them what kind of safety drills that you guys went through as opposed to mass shootings.
Shoot, I can remember doing fire drills. I remember doing drills in the event that bad weather or something like that, would not get near the windows and all that kind of stuff, to move inside the hallways away from the windows or whatever, for bad weather drills. But that was it. Bad weather and fire drills. We didn't do we didn't have to worry about that type thing when I was coming up. Fortunately, I came up during that era when I didn't have to worry about it. Nowadays, it's so prevalent that even at church a couple of Sundays ago, we had a little scare at church. We had two guys walking to church that were very suspicious. They came in separately. They were together. They came in separately. They didn't sit together. They moved separately inside the church. Then they decided to walk out of the church. They finally walked out of the church, and they still were suspicious on how they left the church separately and everything. Even when they went to the parking lot, they was very suspicious acting. And I've had the active shooter training before. I've done some training in different things and dealing with active shooters and just suspicious individuals. And I checked all the boxes off on these dudes, man. I thought we was getting ready to have it. We had some people in the church that were actually got up and walked out of church. Matter of fact, the following Sunday, they came to me, asked for my number, and said, "Man, look, man, I didn't know what was going on last Sunday. I didn't like what happened. Say, I appreciate the way y'all covered it, because me and one of my other security guys, we covered them. We stayed with them, and the church can see that we were actively following those guys, because we at that point we didn't care about offending them. We wanted to make sure everybody was safe. So they finally left. But the following Sunday, or 2 Sundays later, I had to address the congregation on what to do in the event that we have an active shooter. Because it's best to have a plan in place. And if you and your family are ever out in public or whatever, I suggest that you have a plan in place. When you walk into a restaurant, look for the exits. When you walk into a business, you walk into a grocery store, make sure you have escape routes. Have a plan in place. Go over plans with your kids. Tell them, hey, if something happens, because the first thing to do is run. If you run, say, hey, we'll meet up at a certain location in an hour, 30 minutes, or whatever the case may be. have some kind of plan in place. It's not crazy to plan these days. It's not being like I used to think it was crazy that you have to plan for that kind of stuff, but nowadays you have to be ready for it. So my security team at church, we train for it, and if it ever happens at our church, I just pray that we're able to be successful in carrying out our plan to eliminate the threat or whatever.
So just to give some context, Kim's church is heavily attended by law enforcement officers, so it's easy for him to put his security team together and to kind of know how to do that. Kim, you and I both, you worked it your whole career. I worked it for a season. We both worked narcotics. And narcotics, well, you always plan for a way out, or as we would call, this is what you do when the shooting starts, not if the shooting starts, but when the shooting starts. And I'm sitting here listening to you give this advice, and I see what Jennifer. Thanks for signing on tonight, Jennifer. She said great advice, and all of your comments. We're going to get to your comments, and we're going to actually look at them. We're not going to wait till the halfway point of the show. And incidentally, we're probably going to run to 9:15 tonight. We'll try to cap it there, but we're going to spend some time with this issue tonight. I'm just sitting here in utter amazement that someone has a sign on the show and say great advice, because you're telling us that we're in church and we go to a shopping mall. Heck, in Louisville today, a mass shooting took place at a bank. I had already planned, as you know, I was going on vacation, and I already planned that tonight was going to be, we were going to deal with the Covenant School shooting. And before we could even do it this morning, this happens. Do you have any details on that shooting today, Kim?
Only thing I know is a former bank employee that was disgruntled. He heard he was going to get fired. He went back into the bank and I forgot how many were killed. I know a police officer was shot in the face. It only been on a couple of weeks. He had just got sworn in a couple of weeks ago, and he was shot in the face. 26-year-old officer, and then there was another officer that was wounded. Both are out of critical condition at this point, I think. And the rest of the people that were transported to the hospital, I think it was like 6 people total. Could be wrong with that number. Were transported to the hospital, but none of them are life-threatening at this point. So they had some they did have some people that were killed, but at this point, none of the other people that were shot are life-threatening. So that's a good thing.
Well,
but it was this disgruntled employee. I forgot his age, but looked like a young kid, just disgruntled. So because he's getting fired for whatever reason.
Man, producer, would you put that poster? That was the Louisville shooting. That was slide 1, I think. This one also hit hard to me, Kim, because I've been running, so I haven't. That's why I asked you about the details. I haven't had a chance. And Patricia, we come into your comments, because there's a segment in the show and we're going to deal with just what you are saying. As you know, Kim, I went to grad school in Louisville, and for a season while I was in grad school, I worked at University of Louisville Hospital. It was Humana University of Louisville Training Hospital, and the lieutenant that I worked on there. I'm thinking it was shortly after we had relocated to Illinois. There was a mass shooting at one of the manufacturing plants there, and his sister was wounded. And I understand that this guy was a big Army guy and everything, that he was so psychologically messed up from his sister being wounded that he got out of retired from law enforcement altogether. And we were just thinking about right there at that hospital. We were located right in front of the trauma of the emergency room. We were always prepared for shooting or craziness. In fact, that did occur in the parking lot, like right across the parking lot one night. But the idea of a mass shooting was a concept that was just kind of grabbing the country. And I don't know how many of you on with us tonight remember the first recorded incident of a mass shooting, was when a gunman entered the tower. I think it was 69, 71, something like that, and at the University of Texas, and shot a lot of students that were passing by on the courtyard, and they ended up having to take him down, but not before he had killed, I think, some 20 students or something are wounded, so many. It's just unconscionable that we have to deal with that in this society. A little bit later in the show, we're going to do some comparisons of America and other cities where this happens. But this hit me hard today, and I purposely didn't stay away. But before we could even talk about Covenant School, here is another one. And Covenant School occurred two weeks from today. And there's been 4 mass shootings. Kim, what are the numbers that constitutes a mass shooting? Do you know?
Well, 3 or more is definitely a mass shooting. 2 is possibly 2 and more is possibly a mass shooting, but I know 3 or more is considered a mass shooting. We had a situation here some years back where a guy went to a GMC loan place and shot up a bunch of people. I think he shot like 5, ended up killing like 3 or 4 of them and then wounded like 5 of them. But I think that's all it takes is 3 to be considered a mass shooting, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, so the concept of a mass shooting is not like a bank robbery. It is a mass shooting, but it's not the kind of mass shootings that we're talking about. It's not like a bank robbery or a domestic violence incident where like the wrestler who killed his family, Chris Benoit, even though that wasn't a shooting incident. A mass shooting is usually what you just mentioned, where somebody goes in there disgruntled or quote unquote mentally ill and they take out people. It's not like a mass shooting if a gang war breaks out. This thing in South Carolina where these high school students were shot Saturday or Sunday, that was considered a mass shooting. But a mass shooting that we're talking about is where usually you go into where people are unsuspecting and you shoot people, usually out of being disgruntled. Kim, can you see what Henry was saying, please?
Let's see. Patricia. The producers holding their comments. You can go ahead and show those comments. We have comments from Patricia and from Henry. Madam Producer, if you go ahead and show those, I appreciate them. Henry is saying, Kim, what do you say about those officers that stood around supposed to be protecting the kids and children, and when children still were killed? Well, I think that they were cowards. If you sign up for the job, if your job is to enter, and it sounds crazy. It's just like firemen. They're charging into a burning building. Policemen, we charge into a building where people are usually running out of it. We're charging into them to eliminate the threat. That's what we signed up for. And if you signed up for it, then that's what you need to have the courage to do it. In my opinion, this is my opinion. Those officers were cowards. They didn't hold up to their standard of protecting and serving, in my opinion. So the officers that I've worked around, and I was on the SWAT team here in Jacksonville. So a lot of the officers that I've worked around in narcotics and on the SWAT team or whatever, when something like that happens, we don't even think about it. We just react. And it's weird. It sounds crazy, but that's what happens. It's just in my head. If something like that happens around me, I'm going to react to it. I don't even think about it. I just react to it.
And Henry, I want to elaborate on what Kim just said. Kim retired as a law enforcement officer. I stepped away from law enforcement, I think about 40 years ago to go and pursue ministry and went on to grad school and so forth. But even as an educator, which was my last career, and you just heard me say it, even as an educator, it was in my mind that I'm not standing by as a passive lamb and watch these kids get slaughtered. Now, the guy you heard me say I shook his hands that was killed, the football coach, I understand he actually threw himself in front of the Parkland shooter to try to protect the young lady. And I mean, that's just the ultimate sacrifice. But it was in my mind that there was going to be, even though I was not armed, there was going to be some plan of action, not just to stand by. Now, at the Parkland shooting, there were so many intricacies involved. And I don't want to, that community has suffered enough, and I don't want to cast aspersions on them. But I know exactly what happened. the kid got into the school because one of the doors that should have been secured was blocked by students. And when the school security guy went to ask him about it, he said, I just closed this door. And the kid made a statement to the effect of, what if my mother calls downtown and you don't have a job tomorrow or something like that? And so when things like that happen, everybody gets our sheriff lost his job, and he's been on the show with Kim and I, Sheriff Israel, because of the Parkland shooting. But Kim talked about being a coward. There was a guard. I mean, there was a BSO deputy that was short to retire. He was a elderly fella. My age, I won't say elderly, but he was short to retire. And there was a lot of controversy that he was very slow to react. And, you know, when you put on that badge or anything, you're protecting kids or people, and maybe it's just because of my occupation, it's just my mindset. I'm not going to sit around and let those kids innocently die. I'm going to do everything I can to protect them. And I think that has something to do with our training. So that's one of the things that happened as a result of this shooting. I want to go ahead, Kim.
If I could say this to Henry, and Patricia had a comment too. I want to get to her comment as well. But Henry, one thing I want to say, and I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm trying to be macho or nothing like that. But you know, when you train for a situation and you train so much for it, which we did when I was on the SWAT team, when you train for that situation, when it happens, you don't think about it. You respond to it. You just react to it. The 6 police shootings I've been involved in, when only one of those persons got a shot off at us, and my partner and I, we both responded the way we were taught and trained to respond. And of course, that along with the good Lord being on our side, we've won all 6 shooting I've been involved in. We've been successful in them. So, you know, it's a matter of just reacting. I don't like the Monday morning quarterback what another officer does at a scene. But if you didn't enter that building, to me, that's cowardly. You're trained to enter the building. Across the country, nationwide, officers are trained to enter the building, even if you're by yourself. You don't even wait for backup. The first person that responds is supposed to enter the building and seek that individual and you know, trying to save as many lives as you can save. So, you know, that's the way I feel about that situation. And Tricia, I know you had a question on. Here it is. You take away guns from the general public, it takes away our right to defend ourselves from the only one who will have guns, the criminals, and mental incompetence. And that's a good point. That's a very good point. I'm a firm believer in I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Not taking guns away from people. Gun control is what I'm kind of in favor of. Gun control, and I guess you say, how do you keep the guns out of the hands of the bad guys? And I can't answer that. I can't answer that. I definitely don't believe that we should take our guns away from everyone, because then, like you said, the bad guys are still going to have guns. It's just like the permitless carry law here in Florida now, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in just a second, down, and really want to address Tricia's comment. I have a slide to deal with that just a second.
Okay, well, I'm just going to touch on this small point on it because it kind of deals with what she said here. The permitless carry, right now, you have people that carry here that do it the right way. They go get a permit to carry the firearm, and I'm not in favor of the permitless carry, not at all. Don't get me, don't mistake, but don't mistake that I'm defending that. But the thing about it is, as of right now, the people who are doing it the right way, we're getting taxed because we go get the permit, and then you still get those guys out there who are still going to carry their guns without the permit. So we're actually, with the way the law is now, I guess you're taxing the people who are doing it the right way because they have to pay and go get the permit and everything. And as a former police officer, I feel much more comfortable knowing where that gun came from, who it belongs to, who it's registered to, and all that. If I stop the vehicle. Now, if you stop a car, you don't know who that gun belongs to, or whatever the case might be, or after June, when that law kicks in, that's the way it will be. You won't know who that weapon belongs to. They can carry a weapon on them. You don't know who's the rightful owner or whatever. So,
I want to deal specifically with Tricia's comment in just a second. But Madam Producer, put the NICS up. Let's go to the NICS slide, and then we're going to do that. We're going to head to our break. slide number 2 deals with the list of mass shootings that we have had to contend with in this nation. Look at, and they're listed by orders of casualties. If you'll look right down Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church, can you imagine that a church, a mosque, a synagogue, a temple has to contend with mass shooters coming in? And of course, there's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. These are the top 10 mass shootings in America. And we had a student, a friend of mine had a kid at Virginia Tech. When that shooting took place, I'll always remember the Pulse nightclub. My wife was, we were attending church, and she started getting massive calls from her staffs about the overload of people coming in to give blood. And she ended up working virtually around the clock for the next 48 hours. People wanting, and we had kids from our area who lived in Orlando. And in fact, my own son, Dozell, was living there and lives there. I know he probably would not be around the Pulse nightclub, but and some of my other kids, I knew that would probably not be where they would be on a Saturday night. However, you just never know. So we just went down the list that morning right before church and was calling to make sure everybody was all right. In all of these situations, these are Americans. These are people. There's somebody who went to work or went to one of these places that day for pleasure or for edification or whatever, and had no idea that some coward with the M16 or its liking will come in and take their lives. I just wanted to show the diversity of the list of the kinds of places that have been attacked by mass shootings. Kim, I think
I don't see the shooting at the church up in Charleston where the black parishioners were in there. I don't see that one up there, but it was a mass shooting as well.
Yeah, it is top 10 by numbers of victims.
I got you.
Fatalities. So yeah, I think
the shooting that happened down at Pulse nightclub. One of my friends, the friend that went to second grade with me, Claudia Coleman, which was living in Orlando at that time, and she was shot 2 days after the shooting happened at Pulse, and taking a friend home, driving through where a nightclub had just closed, and there was a shootout took place right when she was driving through. A bullet came through and hit her in her shoulder, went all the way across into her lungs and all that. And she was at the hospital. There's a hospital just a couple of blocks down the street from the Pulse nightclub. So when we was going to visit her, we passed there, and they had had all the flowers and all the memorial, stuff out there celebrating, in honor of the victims from Pulse. That kind of hit home with me. There was just a ton of stuff out there where people, left. That made me realize just how many people had been hit there. And as we rode up, got up to our room in the hospital, you could look out the window and see Pulse nightclub and see just, people still coming by and just dropping off stuff and all. It was still kind of sad. A couple of days, I think it was 2 days after that.
In Vegas, was it 54 on that chart? I think that were killed there in Vegas from that hotel room. It's just so Kim. So what is Jennifer saying, Kim? Can you see?
Let's see. Jennifer says, as a trained officer for these type of situations, how often do the officers go through the training? And my concern is, if the training occurred 10 years ago, are the officers required to go through refresher training? And if so, how often? So that's a good question, Jennifer. What happens is we have to do every year, we have to go to what's called in-service training. In-service training is a yearly thing that we do. Some people do it twice a year. Some departments do it twice a year, but we definitely do it at least once a year, depending on how big your agency is. We do it at least once a year, and we learn the latest trainings, whether it be driving, active shooters, or whatever the case may be. So, and answer your question, things that occurred 10 years ago, the training has changed. 10 years ago, we used to sit and enter a building methodically and slowly and try and catch up to that person. Now we actively go at them. One thing we've learned is that these cowards that go in, the active shooters that go in shooting at people like that, they don't expect for any kind of kickback at them. They think they're just going in and be able to just kill people at will and until the officers show up. But if they actually go in there and they meet a good guy with a gun, then they retreat. We find that they retreat. So yeah, we do training at least once a year at in-service training. So we kind of stay up on the current thing that's sweeping the nation with all the different departments across the country.
So Kim, Uvalde, you talked about a coward. Weren't they kind of waiting tactically to go in Uvalde, the mass shooting that took place right before the end of school out in Texas last year? Isn't that what happened there? Those officers, they were given a command. They were waiting instead of going right. Now that's the thing about cover. So Jennifer, talking about the training, Kim just made the point that now they're trained to go right in, even if you're a single officer, to go in to try to neutralize that target. We saw that at Covenant School. Many of us 2 weeks ago saw the actual officers going in right in there. If you talk about heroes, they are unsung heroes. They should be retired right now and never have to work again a day of their lives for what they did, because they saved hundreds of lives possibly. So, but isn't that how, Kim, could you just elaborate on that? How the training is, what changed the training about being methodical to moving right in now?
What happened? If sitting back and waiting to move in methodically, you continuously losing lives in there. That active shooters in there, their job is going there is to shoot as many people as they can in as short amount of time as they can. So if you're sitting out there waiting to move in methodically, you're losing lives. So that's why the training has changed, and we're taught now to enter that situation, trying to eliminate that threat as soon as possible. Fortunately, in most cases of active shooters, there's only one. I don't recall any case where we had two active shooters going to a building. So I know we've trained for two active shooters.
Columbine.
Yeah, that's why there was two. Was it 2 or 3 that went in there?
Yeah, it was 2 or 3.
It was 2. Okay. I was trying to remember, but anyway, in most cases, fortunately, it's only one, and you can go in and you can eliminate that threat. Especially if you have numbers on your side, usually you can win. So along with the training came the proper firepower. Before we used to carry shotguns. Now we carry AR-15s. Most agencies are issuing their officers AR-15s, so we can stay on the same threat level as the bad guys now, because they're using those type of weapons. Now we can fight fair with them instead of going in with a pistol or a shotgun. So along with the training came better toys to play with, if I can use that word, when we're trying to eliminate the threat.
Henry, when we come back after break, Henry, Matt, we're not ignoring. We just kind of got the show tonight kind of segmented off because we could be all over the place. And both of your comments are going to come right in when we come back after the break. I just want to say this leading into the break, and I wanted Kim, and I asked Kim, and I tried to reach out to some other law enforcement officers who kind of shared what Pat said, and I know Kim kind of has that sentiment to a point. I'm this dove on the other side, and it's not because I'm a preacher. I just tell you, I despise guns. Are guns a necessity? Don't you better have one? Oh, absolutely. But personally, I absolutely despise guns. When I worked narcotics, it was just, you had a gun everywhere, all over your body, because you never knew when you were going to need it or where you were going to need it. So I just despise them. You had to have them in your cars, and I had small kids. I despise guns. But the thing that made me really hate guns more was the year 1968. On April the 4th, Dr. King was taken from us by a high-powered rifle, and that was, I think, Black America kind of was braced that we may be facing that at some point. But when it happens, it's always a shock and it's always painful. But after that, 6 weeks later, June the 6th, Bobby Kennedy was killed by a gun. And it was almost like he was Black America's last great hope. That 2020 reminded me so much of 1968. We had the riots in 68. We had the 2 assassinations. Governor Wallace was shot. and just the turmoil. But it was guns that took those lives. It wasn't. They didn't get choked to death. They didn't get stabbed. They were not chopped to death by a kung fu artist. They were shot by a gun. And so for people who make the thing about guns, and we're going to talk next about that in the next segment, I think, when we talk about high-powered rifles, and I was glad to hear you say that, Kim. If you didn't have guns, a lot of people wouldn't be getting killed. And for some coward to turn this and shoot, and we've lost a family member to gun violence. So, and it hits real close to home with Kim. So, guns, yeah, you're not gonna make a compelling argument for me. I'm all about protection, but some of the firearms that we can. We're gonna talk about that in the laws in just a second. We're gonna go to break one more time, and we'll be right back. Like I say, stay buckled in. We're going to run about 15, 20 minutes over the night because this topic just bears that. More from us in just a second. World.com. You see the list of celebrities that they have worked with on their list of candidates. So we want you to please patronize our sponsors tonight. They make us look good. They'll make you look good. That's GoGigaWorld.com. They have all of your virtual all of your virtual production, web building, anything that you need to market your product. GoGigaWorld.com. They got you figured out. Tonight is I told you all in the promos that I'm taking the gloves off, and that's exactly what I'm doing tonight. So tonight is we're doing tonight's segment is you are despicable. So you are despicable. No, it's not this first guy. You're despicable as despicable can get. I happen to have been in Tallahassee. I'm going to talk more about that. I happen to have been in Tallahassee when the legislation about open carry, permitless carry, and all of those things. But you're so despicable, Ron DeSantis, that you passed this law. You signed it. You didn't do it in public like most people with backbones do, or guts, or if I could say what I really want to say, and y'all probably know what I want to say. You know, if you got them, you do it in the public like you do any other law. But you brought your buddies from the NRA and locked them in a room so they were away from the media. You had your own person take this picture and send it out after the fact because you showed that you cubby up to the NRA as most of you right wing scary Republicans do because you're scared they're going to cut off their money too. But it's not even you tonight, Ron DeSantis, and you are despicable. Your name should be Ron Despicable. It's not even you. And it's not even Orange Hitler, the first president in history to be charged with a crime. It's not you tonight. It's somebody who's more despicable than the two of you guys combined. It is the unabashed racist legislature in the state of Tennessee. You're the ones who catch it tonight. You're totally despicable. I know it's a different age. I know Orange Hitler kind of ushered it in. I know he made it where you can say there's good people on either side when you're talking about white supremacists, when you're talking about neo-Nazis. You can call them. He ushered that era in. He turned back the hands of clock of 2008 and made this country what should have been a post-racial country. He made us really racial. But guess what you guys did? You expelled, you targeted 3 members of Congress in the state legislature there in Tennessee, you targeted three minorities, 2 blacks and a white female. But just to show, because that's what's going on now, nobody's hiding racism anymore. They're not hiding anti-Semitism. They're not hiding homophobia anymore. It's right on your sleeves. You expel both of the African Americans from the House of Representatives, and by 1 vote, it was already planned out. I know about that. I've been a part of government. I know how you did it. You planned that you would save the 1 white female. So you took the gloves off. You showed, you just really, what you took off were the hoods. Back in Tennessee, Henry, I'm sure back in the day, you had the Klan just out in the streets after most people had stopped walking around with their hoods on. But what you did was you openly took your hood off and showed, and you made a statement to all of America that you were turning back the hands of the clock, and that you were going to be a racist body, and you were going to expel 2 brilliant young African Americans and leave the white lady standing. Nobody should have even been brought up for suspension or expulsion from the House of Representatives, because all they did was stood with we the people, which we still have the right to do in this nation, even in spite of Ron Despicable thinking differently. We still can protest in this nation, and because they protested, you expelled them from the Congress. And you talked to them, I saw it, you talked to them like they were your boys. Well, we got your boys. Those days are over. We're never going to turn back. You talk about guns. In fact, one of the things one of the legislators told us to do in Tallahassee was go back. If they want to do this, and they were talking about open carry, go back and tell every black person you know to get a gun and carry it on their backs. When they see that, they'll change their minds. Tennessee, you're despicable. Tennessee legislatures, governor, anybody who let that happen, you are absolutely despicable. And any business who does anything in the state of Tennessee, I exhort you to change your mind. Go to Alabama, go to Mississippi, go to Arkansas, go to these states where you can come to Florida now. It's turning despicable. It's turning it racist too. Go to any of these states, but leave pull your economic power out of Tennessee, because they've shown their hands. Despicable. You are despicable. Get them off. I don't want to look at them anymore. I do want to show those 3 young men, though. Again, those 2 young men and the young lady. We right before the show came on the air, Brother Jones, the young man you see there in the white shirt, he was reinstated to the Congress. There's a process by which a local government, by where they represent, can reinstate them. By the grace of God, he was reinstated. And the eloquent young man you see standing by, I understand he's going to be reinstated momentarily. So thank God there is a redress to the process. I don't want to leave with this sour note with that. I want to do a shout out tonight also. I've been away for a few weeks. I'm going to do that. I want to shout out my granddaughter, Joy Glenn. Joy is a member of the Honor Society. Yeah. Joy has been homeschooled, and this is why I'm really pointing out to her. She's been homeschooled up until her junior year, and she strategically planned when she wanted to enter the public school system, and she put everything together. And she's gone there, Kim, and she's made straight A's. And she has recently been given an apprenticeship job based on her. Out of 100 students who applied, she was number 8 on the list, and she was just hired. And I just want to shout her out. She's our granddaughter. She's Madam Producer's daughter, and Henry, who you see, who's contributing so much to the show tonight. That's their second oldest child. But anybody who's doing something positive and who has a plan and who has prepared themselves, and I just have the utmost respect for that young lady. Not only do we love her to life, but we're also so godly proud of your accomplishment, and any young people who makes a plan and sticks to it and goes, we bless God for you. Shout out to you, Joy Glenn. But we're back.
That reflects back on your daughter too, toward herself, for she's homeschooling for that many years. So that all reflects on the family and everything. Henry Glenn and his contribution, that reflects on them as well. So congratulations, Joy. That's good stuff.
hats off to you guys. I mean, absolutely hats off. And I've been there with them and seen Toy runs she's a pretty tough schoolmaster, Kim. So that's why the show is so good, because she puts her nose to the grindstone. And
She always was. She always was smart coming up as well. I remember her being, doing tight work in school as well. I got the comment, man, on that Ron Despicable. I like that. That's good stuff. You need to send that to Trump.
hey, man, I was just wondering.
Change his
Can
nickname.
can we outdo Trump's? He called him Ron DeSanctimonious. I think Ron Despicable is even better. So thanks Jennifer for highlighting that. We're gonna have to do that one. Thanks a lot, man. Hey, let's go to the next slide, because we got to push on through.
Can I say something real quick? And it's back when we're talking about when you're talking about your guns and how how guns killed King and killed Kennedy and all, but it's sadly to say, you're right. If they took away all the guns, and they could take away all the guns at one time and nobody had them, it'd be one thing. But if just go and try and take away guns now, the bad guys are still going to have them, which means they're going to have them, they're going to use them. And we don't have anything to defend ourselves. So I've always said, and it's the old saying that, it takes one good guy with a gun to stop one bad guy with a gun. So, it's I get your point. I get your point totally, but you got to defend yourself. I've taken my I got 6 grandkids, Dozell. I took my 2 oldest one when they're older now, but when they were both 10 and 8 years old, I took them to the gun range, showed them how to shoot. Took Kamari and Chloe, took them to the gun range, show them how to shoot when they're 10 and 8 years old, how to handle a gun, not to touch a gun. I teach. When we were growing up, my dad had a gun in the house. Dad had a gun in the house. We were raised not to touch that gun. We knew not to touch it. If we touched it, we were gonna get touched. So we knew not to touch that gun. I don't believe in putting my guns up, hiding them, and locking them up in safes and all that. I teach my grandkids when they come over here, don't touch my gun, the same way I was taught. And that carries on with them when they're out in the streets or whatever. If they're out in the streets at school or whatever, they see a gun, they know not to touch it. Curiosity killed the cat. And so I try and tell them what they need to know about guns, how dangerous they are. If they're misused and mishandled, they're very dangerous. My wife can shoot. She's going to the gun range with me. And Kristen, my daughter, is a great shot. She's going to the range. She hadn't probably gone in a while, but she goes on her own even. I've given her 2 of my guns. And she's a good shot. So I believe in because of the way society is now, man, we got to be able to protect ourselves. As a father and the man of this home, I feel like I got to be able to protect, my wife, and if I'm unable to do that, then I feel like I'm failing. So like you mentioned earlier, I lost my son in front of my house, right in front of my house. If I would have been here that day when he was shot and killed out in front of the house, if I would have been inside the house and heard that first shot, possibly I could have ran out there and been able to change the odds a little bit. I don't know, but I just want to I just want to be able to protect and defend, the people that I love, So I'm not a big gun person. I don't own a bunch of guns, but the ones that I do own, I perfect them. I can break them down in the dark and put them back together. I've trained doing that. And so if at nighttime, if I ever get a shootout and it malfunctions, I can put it back together, whatever. And I suggest that people learn how to do that type of stuff, man, because you never know. You got to be prepared. It's best to have a plan than not have a plan at all. So here in Jacksonville, you know what it's like up here in Jacksonville, man. I live in the hood. People, fortunately, don't come over here where I live at because they know me. And I got respect of most people. They give me the love and respect that I try and give them. They give it back to me, so I don't have to worry about it. But you never know. If it happens, I want to be prepared for it. So, unfortunately, we have to, carry a weapon so we can even the odds.
I feel you, and listen. Well, we did the same work for a while, so I understand. I mean, I'm far removed from that. But I'm not. So we're going to get right into guns. I know mine is a perfect world thought. I just hate them, and my voice in that did not say that there's not a place for them. I'm just saying personally, I hate them because they take lives, and I'm not saying take them from people. That's not what I'm advocating. But I am going to say this. Madam Producer, let's go to the next slide. Let's look at the kinds of weapons that are involved in mass shootings. This is going to get to what Pat was saying earlier. Okay, this is it's not real big, but we're trying. I don't know if we can spread that, but let me just, in fact, even for me to be able to see it it's a little difficult. But if you look at the list of the mass shootings, look at the weapon. Okay, I got something I can spread. Okay, let's look at the weapons that were used. Vegas, AR-16, Pulse,
AR-15.
AR-15. AR-15. I know better. Pulse, MCX rifle, AR-15, all the way down to the El Paso shooting, AK-47, Uvalde, AR-15, Parkland, AR-15, San Bernardino, AR-15, Aurora, a few years ago, AR-15, Pittsburgh, AR-15 in the synagogue, Boulder, Colorado, a year before last, AR-15, Buffalo, excuse me, where we lost those brothers and sisters up there, AR-15. Now, my question is, and Pat, I was reserving this for now. Thank you, Madam Producer. My question is, my mama's watching, so I won't use the language. I don't use it anyway. But it's going to be a real strong. Who in the heck needs a rifle, a firearm that's a weapon of war that could take down a darn elephant? Who needs that? Who needs to have that in their arsenal? Please tell me. Kim, maybe you can help me.
I have a ton of officers that I work with, a lot of friends that they go out and buy those type of weapons. They like shooting them for for sport and for hobby. But I agree with you. There's no reason for nobody to own that type of weapon. Those weapons are made as for the military, for killing. Those weapons are made strictly for killing. And if you aren't using it in the military or even police officers, certain police officers need them. But I'm just saying, if they're not using that capacity, then I don't think nobody need them in their personal use. Need to have them for personal use. That's why I said earlier about the gun control thing. You know, guns and even I saw it's 4 shootings up there that I saw that handguns was used. So if you perfect the weapon, you can kill as many people as you intentionally want to kill. The bullet from that AK-47 and the AR-15 just does so much more damage than a regular bullet fired from a pistol will do. We know you can touch people a lot further out you're more accurate with those weapons because they have a long barrel on them, so a longer barrel. So I totally agree with you on that. I don't own one of them. I don't. A lot of my friends keep jumping and they got them on sale. I see no reason to have one. Only reason why I see to have one is, like I said earlier, to help defend myself against somebody else who might have one. But my weapon of choice is a shotgun. I love my shotgun. So I see no reason for them. They're for killing. That's exactly what they're made for, killing.
So now let's go into the law. I happened and I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I happened to have been a part of a protest. Was it 3 weeks ago? I was in Tallahassee when they were discussing the open carry and the permitless carry, and we would like to think. I'm a part of an organization, Faith in Florida, and we protested on the steps of the Capitol. In fact, right at the door where the legislatures actually enter to go to work, we protested and had a pretty good audience of people watching us. We protested the open carry and the permitless carry. And now, tell me if I'm wrong, Kim, can you go to a gun show and just buy AR-15 now that there's no permit needed?
Supposedly there's still going to be the 3-day waiting period. Of course, that's what the 3-day waiting period was initially designed for, in order for you to get that permit, give you time to get that permit. So I don't understand the way that's going to work out. I don't even know if they've worked it out, if they figured out how they're going to work that out. But I know that that when you're not supposed to just walk in and buy one and be able to walk out with it. I think you're supposed to still have a 3-day waiting period so they can find out who you are. Now, once you get that weapon, you don't have to have a permit for it. If that makes sense to you, you don't have to have a permit for it. But
What doesn't?
until they find out, they in other words, you just can't walk in a place. Because it could be a convicted felon walking in there and purchasing a weapon. So they're still supposed to find out if your background, do your background and that type thing, see who you are before they sell you a gun. Now, if it's a private owner selling it to someone, another private person, then you can sell it to them like that, and that's legal to do it. But as far as buying one over the counter, they're supposed to still do a 3-day waiting period, to my knowledge, anyway.
So let me ask you this. And I was saving Pat. I hope she's still on. I really want, and Pat, I want you to respond to this. I heard what you said. I heard what you're saying, and I hear that from gun rights advocates. Nobody's trying to come into your bedroom and take your gun from you. But what we are saying is, what the heck do you need with the AR-15? Why do you need a AK? Why do you need these weapons? Just explain that to me. Okay, just explain that to me. So what possible advantage, and I know the answer, but I just want to hear from law enforcement, what possible advantage is permitless carry to society?
I see no advantage to it. Like I said, I haven't spoken to a police officer yet that's in favor of it. I know that some FOP, some fraternal order police have supported the governor because they're supporting him for political reasons. But as far as officers, individual officers talking to him, I haven't spoken to one officer who supports the permitless carry. Because it's just, it just makes your job a little harder. You out there, you stop a car, and say for instance, you stop a car, might have 3 or 4 people in it, and all 3 of them have guns on them. Now you got to figure out who those guns, where they came from, who they belong to, who are the rightful owners of them, and it's just it makes your job harder. Whereas if you go back, sit in your car, you can run the serial number on that gun, and boom, it pops up on your screen who that gun belongs to. So I don't get that. I'm not in favor of it. I don't see the advantage of it.
What
now speaking, you just talking about the AK-47s. You was asking, and that's a totally different question. You made a comment reference for, I think it was Pat, that why do people need them? There's no real purpose for society to own those weapons, because those weapons, if anybody's ever shot an AK-47, that thing got so much kick when you're shooting it. You got to hold it down and keep it, and it sprays. So as fast as you pull the trigger, the faster the bullet will come out. So same thing with any semi-automatic weapon. But as fast as you squeeze that trigger, they're not fully automatic. A lot of people automatically think that they're automatic weapons. They're not. They're semi-automatic weapons, unless you put a bump stop on the end of it or something like that. But those weapons, they shoot, so they spray. They're not accurate, is my point. Yeah. So, they're not the most accurate weapon. AR-15s are accurate. They're very accurate. But AK-47s they're not very accurate weapons. So they're just used for killing, mass killing.
So Kim, do me this favor. Please tell me the ARs. Okay, so I don't need to ask this because I know this. Let me just say, the reason why permitless carries are allowed is that because it's the Republicans and the right wingers who, and I just made up my mind on the show so much for trying to be Mr. Nice Guy down the middle to keep viewers. If you don't like my perspective, Fox News probably has a perspective that you'll enjoy. We don't want to lose any viewers. We would rather you come on and have an open discussion like Pat. But the Republicans just cower up to the NRA. And just what you saw Ron Despicable do, going in a closed door meeting and sign that bill, that is just absolutely, it's horrific. It's horrific. So we're gonna have to get out of here in like 15 minutes. But let's go on to the next. And I want for everybody who talks about people, it's not guns that kill people, it's people who kill people. Well, God dog it, don't you think I know that? But the same people couldn't kill people with their bare hands or other ways if they didn't have that gun. That's all I'm saying. So we're going to make a point, but I want Kim, if you would, please, just kind of catch up on some of our comments. I know Mac has been very patient. And
okay. Madam Producer, if you'll throw them on the screen, we'll jump on them. Okay, the first one I have is from Henry Glenn. I believe the government allows the freedom for anyone to carry a firearm, to give free will to kill anyone they please, especially blacks who are armed with no penalty.
Absolutely. Spot on, Henry. Spot on. That's why that was the point I was about to make. That's why when I was in Tallahassee, several black legislatures said to us, and in fact, the protest that we did, our group, Faith in Florida, we would like to take credit to say that at least we kept us from running around like these fools in Michigan and Texas, looking like we the friggin' militia with guns. At least the Despicable pulled back the open carry part of the firearms bill. Now for now,
I would be surprised. I heard that's coming.
Yeah, well, so it was supposed to have happened 3 weeks ago, but for political reasons, which you mentioned earlier, he's held back the throttle because he doesn't want to lose these purple states right now. If he earns a set to take on his mentor, the Orange Hitler. So right now we don't have open carry, and we're not walking around here looking like idiots, everybody with a handgun. But all of those legislatures, that in fact they made that decision actually while we were there and traveling away, because that day, the day that we left, they were supposed to vote to do that, and they voted. They took that out of the bill. But one of the things that every black legislature, I guess the Black Caucus, had gotten together and they told us, go back. They know I'm a pastor. Go back to your churches, go back to your fraternity, go back to your community clubs, and organize, do gun training. And every black person, if they're going to do that, carry a gun. When they know that black people are walking around carrying guns like that, they'll think twice about it. Now, my thought on that.
Remember, the Black Panther Party armed themselves with AK-47s, and they brought up the law then. They changed the law then back then. So,
man, I'm so glad you brought that. I am so glad you brought that up. I know Daddy was still with us. It probably would be some violence going down about this, but I'm a Panther at heart because they did so many great things for our people. And yeah, they had a radical edge, and they were not pacifists like
they had to be.
Yeah, that's what they had to do what they did. And you're spot on with that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So that's what the legislatures are telling us. My thing is, well, I was the oldest, so Daddy taught me, and he knew we were growing up in Jacksonville, and he knew that Jacksonville was crazy, and that the police had a mission of their own, and if you were the wrong color, and he liked to drive those nice cars, and I was the first one to drive, and he specifically told me, he didn't say, just like when we was in narcotics, they didn't say if the shooting starts, they say when the shooting starts. Daddy said to me, he says, when you get stopped, because I was 16, I was shorter and all of that at the time. He said, when you get stopped, hands on the steering wheel, you keep him there. If you slowly put him up where he sees him, and then you get out of that car and you don't let him say anything to make you put your hands down, so that if something happens, people see what happened. Well, when I first moved to South Florida, I got stopped right in front of what is now the swap shop. I mean, not the swap shop, the Hard Rock Casino. I got stopped by Davie police officers, and they had their own reputation. And I did just what Daddy told, and sure as life, just what Daddy said. It wasn't 6 months after he said that I got stopped one day right there on Florida Avenue, right by Young Life. So I'm right down here in Davie, in front of the Hard Rock, and I get stopped. And that was before the Hard Rock there, so it was real dark, Jennifer, back then. So I turn on every light in the car. I put my hands up on the ceiling so that they could see me, and I turned to a statue. I didn't even breathe. And the officer got out there wearing his big boots and everything, and he said, "What's your name?" and wanted my credentials. I said, "Also, my license are in my right rear pants pocket." And he said, "Get them out." I said, "No, sir. If I can step out, you can see. Say, man, get your pocket. So when I got him out, he said, now I want to see your registration. I said, officer, I'm unlocking the car so your partner, if he can go, I'm not opening that glove box. And I don't have a gun, but I'm not opening it. He said, what is your problem? I said, hey, man, I used to look at my advice from afar. I'm not going to go down like that. He fell out laughing so hard, he told me to just drive and get the HO out of town. So, but I mean, you got to do these things because you can't give any reason. You can't give any reason. Let's go to the last slide. We get ready to get out of here. The last one. So for Pat and anybody else who talks about guns and mental illness and all of that, I just want to show you.
Did we get the last comments in, Dozell? I thought
Go
we
ahead.
had some more comments.
No, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was sure. I thought we had some from Pat or from.
Max said something.
Okay, Mike Anderson says, since the founding of this country and world history, guns are equivalent to being a great equalizer. True. From an economic to genetic viewpoint, guns will never be eliminated. I strongly agree with that.
And you know what? I'm not trying for guns to be eliminated. I'm just saying, why do we have to have AKs? Why do we have to have AR-15s? Why do we have to have permitless carrying? You got law enforcement saying it's dangerous. Why?
Bigger is better.
Put money in your pocket.
Bigger is better, and I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying bigger is better on everything you do, just about. And the bigger your gun, the more rounds it holds, and all that. You know, that's what people want to do. You know, it's a sport. You know, some people shoot them for sport. Some people shoot them for the sake of shooting. You know, they just enjoy shooting guns. You know, that's their excuse a lot of times for owning those type of weapons. I wouldn't even say it's an excuse because I shot them. I like shooting AR-15s. I enjoy shooting those. It's a very accurate weapon. I like shooting M16s. They're military carry. They're very accurate weapons. I have no quarrels with shooting. I like shooting. They don't have a lot of kick, but you know, as far as I still think there should be some type of gun control. I don't know how to do that, but there should be some type of gun control. You know, the AK-47, that's that's a Russian-made gun. It's just made to kill. And you know, can you admit all officers that are trained are not good officers? Oh, I totally agree with that. That's just like with any profession. Henry Green's comment was, can you admit all officers that are trained are not good officers? You know, and I don't like to make things about black and white, but the question comes to me a lot: how come you never have those accidental shootings with black officers? You know, a lot of times people say white officers are scared because they're in the hood, and that's why certain things happen. They're nervous when they get there, and that's why they pull their guns first of all, and then they're nervous, and they next thing you know they squeeze a round off when they shouldn't have squeezed that round off because they're nervous. How come that happens? That never happens. You never hear about that happening with black officers. You know, a lot of accidental shootings with black officers. You had the situation in Memphis that I'm very much against and not proud of, but that was something that was intentional. It wasn't a shooting; they just beat him to death. But you don't see a lot of shootings where black officers are involved, where they have accidentally squeezed the trigger, you know, or they had a very questionable type shooting, like you see a lot of white officers involved in. Is it because white officers aren't scared in the hood, or what's the use for that? Most of the time, guns are used for hate. Is Henry's comment. Most of the time, guns are used for hate, and that could be part of the reason. I mean, you know, they used to lynch us with rope. Now they lynching us with guns. You know, so I mean, and I'm like I said, it ain't about black and white with me. People that know me know about it. It ain't about black and white with me, but I just try and call it like I see it, and you know, that's what's happening.
Well, you know what, Kim? I heard you say that earlier. And I'm gonna, you know my story. I kind of lost my career. I was planning on, resigning and going to go to grad school anyway. But I lost my career because I got hit on the beach when, back when you could still drive on the beach. And when you talk about black and white, I got hit. A guy ran into me 50 miles per hour in a pickup truck. I was parked there just probably because I written a ticket because I didn't write tickets. And I said, that's what happened to me for writing this ticket because I didn't write them. But I'd written a kid a ticket for doing donuts. He's about to flip his car over on the beach. and I was sitting down right against the water, right in the circumstances on the back of the court, and this guy hits me at 53 miles per hour in a pickup truck, and I'm, my legs are long, and the car, the police cars, the seats are so close, and I'm all jammed up in there, and I'm just foggy, and he's drunk, and he gets out the car and comes around to jump on me, and he was like big, and so I was able to get out the car before he could walk all the way around before he could quite get to me, and by instinct I pulled my gun and I drew down on him. And in spite of what everybody says, you're told you don't pull it unless you're gonna use it. And I drew down, and at the 11th hour, I reholstered my gun, and I said, "Well, I'm very disadvantaged at this point because I'm groggy, I'm hurting, I'm in bad shape, but after working narcotics, I just always had a fear going to jail. And my fear, you talk about, it's not about black and white. My fear was if I shoot this white boy on the beach at 2:30 in the morning without witness one, my black blank going to jail. I was just scared of that. In my department, unlike Jacksonville, back then they're going to support the officer. My department was not going to mess up their tourist dollar for a rogue cop. And I thought that but just in the back of my mind, I reholstered, and I taught, I know you were a boxer, and I did what Daddy taught us, how to hug and hold somebody. And since he was so drunk, I was able to kind of keep him at bay. And by the grace of God, there was a white brother on the back of a hotel who came down and helped me get him until the troops came. And of course, they administered a little justice.
Time served. We call it time served.
Well, they did that, and while they were trying to figure out what they were going to do with me, if they were going to retire me out or whatever, whenever I was physically able, I worked in the communications center. This went on for about 16 months. And while in there one night, right before I left the department, and I can call his name right now, and that was 40 years ago, this officer stopped. He had a traffic stop, and he called the guy's name. And before I could call the dispatch up front and tell her that this is the guy who hurt me, the officer, and the guy was old, and the officer was older than mine. He was no condition. He said, "Get me some help. This guy's going crazy on me." And they went over. They had to touch him up and get him into the jail. When they got into the jail, I could see on the camera that he was crazy again. This is almost 2 years later. He's done this again. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but sometimes you got to use your head. So let's go to the last slide so we can get out of here. The last slide talks about, and I know it's not very large, and this is for Pat too, and everybody who wants to make people who does gun violence, everybody who want to make it, it's a mental issue. It's people that are mentally deranged, and of course, statistics are showing that there are a lot of people that are mentally deranged that are doing this gun stuff. But I just want you to see, you got mentally ill people all over the world, in all countries. But I want everybody to just see how it just so happens that only in America, where we have mentally ill people, that we're just, I mean, it's not even, it's a disproportionate amount of gun mass shootings. We lead nationwide. 120.5% of people, mass shootings occur in America. Yemen, which is kind of, I hate to say, a third world country, is like second with 52%. And I lost my screen. But you get the point. America is 50% higher than the next country. And from the top of that chart to the bottom of the chart, it's almost 100 or more percentage difference. And so I just want somebody to please explain before we get out of here. Thanks, Madam Producer. I just want somebody to just please explain to me, how is it that we, that America, in all of its, are we the only nation on earth that has mentally ill people, or why is it that we are the ones that has all these mass shootings? And I was preparing for this show today. Before we could even air the show, there's another mass shooting in Louisville, Kentucky. Somebody please tell me, Kim, I know you lost your picture. Are you able to communicate with me?
I'm coming. I had to recharge. Got to plug in. I'm about to lose juice.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, 1 second. Had to go get my cord. I'm about to lose my power.
okay, I know we went a little over, Madam Producer. This won't be happening, and we've been doing good with our time, but I wanted to get this out. I had to get this off my chest tonight. I'm just sick of guns and what it's doing to people, and then the laws that these states are now doing. So, Kim, why is it that we have such a disproportionate number to even the next country in mass shootings?
You say, I'm sorry, I missed the question. I was running to get that cord. Say it again.
Why is it that America? I had a poster that showed that America has 125% of the world's mass shootings, and the next country, which is Yemen, Yemen, has 52%, and then the last country that's listed has almost 0%. It's 1.1 or something. Why is it that only in America we the only people with mentally ill people? Why is it that we have so many cases of mass shootings here?
And I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I'll say this that our gun thing is one reason why the guns are so easy to get here in America. So that's one reason why we have so many mass shootings. Guns are very easy. I can leave here and come back here in 15 minutes with a pistol that I just bought off the streets, and that's real talk. I can leave here. I know right where I can go and get a gun and be back here in 15 minutes and have a gun to show you. I guarantee you. I can go buy one. I happen to live in the hood. You know that. But I can go right around the corner, get a gun, and come back here with one. That's one of the problems. That's one of the issues. Number two, the mental state. I don't know if we're taking mental ill people serious enough. I think that's one of the issues. We need to do more with people that are having mental ill issues. I think those are two of the main contributors there. I mean, I saw, and I don't remember what place it was, Australia or somewhere, where they had some mass shootings, and I don't know if they took all the guns away or whatever it was, what place it was, but that ended their mass shooting. They ended their mass shootings that they had. They had one in the last 10 years. So if America did that, I mean, it would definitely work. If they even took guns off the streets from everybody, I think it would slow it down, because the people that have guns illegally they're gonna stop popping up, and eventually, hopefully, they'll be able to get all those guns from those people. But I mean, there's too much money being made with that. We know that's not going to happen. Just realistically speaking, it's not going to happen.
You cannot get one Republican legislature in the United States Congress, the House or the Senate, that will vote against the NRA. Tennessee expelled two brothers from the Congress because they rallied with the people against gun violence. It's money. It's money. It's money. And
like you said, Ron, what Despicable? What was his name? Ron what?
Ronald Despicable.
Ron Despicable. He did what he did behind closed doors with no media there. When he does everything in front of the media. So when he signed this permitless carry thing, he did that, in closed doors and all. And he also made sure that nobody was armed that came in there to So he's doing it for political reasons. We know what he's doing. We know his intentions.
Well, I think we hit this thing a little bit on the head. It would take many more hours of a show, but I'm just grateful for everybody who signed on tonight, and I'm so glad you were able to be with us tonight, Kim, to talk about this, because I know you are an expert, and I was looking to have a Pat on the show that was even more farther to the right than her, but to lead the other side. I just think reasonable legislation and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back out and let you do the as I see it, and then I'll do mine on something different, and we'll be out of here.
Well, first of all, I want to say this: this show here, the type of shows I enjoy doing. You call me an expert. I've had some training in it. I don't know if I really qualify as an expert, But what I do share with the listeners on this show are things that I know to be facts. I'm not, and if it's my opinion, I tell you it's my opinion. So, I won't bring you anything that or I won't make up something to tell these listeners, just to make a point. Um, and what I will say is this: that until we can come together in this country as Republicans, Democrats, black, white, whatever you want to call it, until we can come together in this country and be able to work together instead of working against each other. And thing I hate most about politics is Republicans won't support a Democrat. I very rarely meet a Republican that will support a Democrat. Whereas I know plenty of Democrats that will support a Republican if they think they're the best person for the position. I know Donna and I did here. My wife Donna and I did that here in Jacksonville when Angie Corey ran for state attorney. She was a Republican. We had to change our affiliation to vote in order to vote for her, and we did. And a lot of people don't agree with the way that she ran the office, but I strongly agree with the way she ran the office. I know her, and I know her hard. So she's very, very compassionate about her victims. A lot of people say that she's too hard on the suspects, the bad guys, defendants, whatever you want to call them. But when she ran on those premises, saying that she was going to be hard on people who commit violent crimes, she said that when she ran. She said that she was going to give them the max, and that's what she did. A lot of people say she's prejudiced. She's her farthest thing from being prejudiced. If you ever went and just sat in her office, you'll see all kind of pictures of black victims in her office that she would sit there and start talking about them and shed tears over them. So I know her hard. My point is this: until we come together, Democrats, Republicans, or whatever the case might be, and if we don't start voting for the person that's best qualified for the position, not because of their political affiliation, we're going to continue to have these issues. That's why you got the thing going on up in where's it, Nashville?
Yeah.
And up in Nashville right now. That's in Tennessee right now. Because certain people just they and unfortunately, a lot of times it's a black-white issue. I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's a black-white thing sometimes. Sometimes it's a Republican Democrat thing, but a lot of times that leads to it being a black-white thing. We all know that. I'm not saying that nothing that we don't know. So as I see it, until we come together as a country and start doing the right thing instead of the popular thing, we're gonna stay in these same situations. We're gonna continue having these same situations that we've been battling for years, and hopefully it just doesn't get worse with people like Ron Despicable and Orange Man in office. Hopefully not in office, but running for office. Hopefully things won't get bad. They call those two representatives up there in Tennessee. They call them insurrectionists.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's totally crazy, man. They call those two. They call all three of them insurrectionists. But we know who the real insurrectionist was back from January the 6th. So there's no question on that.
They were called tourists.
yeah. They were called tourists. You're right. They were called tourists instead of insurrectionists. So, it's crazy. It's don't know what to expect. That's why I firmly believe that you have to stay prayed up, and you have something to defend yourself with. Common sense. So that's how I see it. And I think we need to revisit this show and make it a 2-hour show. And I'll bring somebody on that would somebody that's strong on guns and all that is from the far right that would try and defend that. Because until we talk about it, we need to talk about it, need to discuss it. I'm all for. I know earlier you said they go to Fox News and get a better perspective if that's what they get, or not a better perspective, but a perspective that they're looking for. So I'd rather them stay here and let's chalk it up and let's talk it out. Let's see what's let them bring theirs and we'll bring ours. And see what they got to say about it.
Let's do this in about 6 weeks. I think that's a great. You can't talk about this too much, and I'm sure between here and there's going to be another plethora of mass shootings. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guarantee you that.
Kim, I had thought about asking you to because we didn't get a chance to in pre-production to talk about it. I wanted to ask you to very tactfully discuss the effect of an AR-15 bullet, but I don't think we need to do it at this end of the show. But we'll talk about that when we come back on again. We can do it without being graphic because these are kids, and it just breaks my heart thinking about it. So
I actually went to shooting once when two kids had just got a pop one on football practice here in Jacksonville, and I was the second officer to respond to that shooting. I wasn't assigned to it, but I was in the area and I responded to it. And those kids' one kid arm was just barely hanging on by a piece of skin, his legs, and
I don't want to be graphic.
And I'm not getting that. All I want to say about that is that bullet is intended to, when it hits you, it's drilling around, it's spinning around, and it moves through your body and just rips your skin apart. And that's what it's intended to do. That's what it does. It's a very dangerous bullet, you know. It's a very, very dangerous bullet. It penetrates walls. It penetrates buildings. I've seen it where it went through a house that was made of block, not brick, but block, and went through the house, went through 2 walls, and ended up in a room in the back, in the medicine cabinet in the back bedroom, in the back bathroom. I mean, so that bullet it will travel, and it is so fast that it will go through and leave just big holes, depending on what type of bullets they're shooting out of it. It will leave just tremendous size holes in a person. So imagine if it does that to a block house, what it does to a person's body.
So as a pastoral counselor, grief counselor, I often, we talk about closure and being able to say goodbye to your loved ones. I never understood. You just really gave, they said often in these mass shootings with these high-powered weapons that their parents couldn't even have that sense of closure with their family. And that's unbelievable. You just giving me just a taste of what it's like. So, hey, as I see it tonight, it's been a heavy show tonight, and I want to do something light tonight. As I see it is, today is National Siblings Day, and I am just grateful as I can be to have my youngest brother on the show with me tonight. We have 3 kids, and I'm in business with that's the V3 there, but we have 3 kids. And I'm in business with all 3 of my kids now. Madam Toya produces this show. She's our oldest child. My son, we do real estate together. And then my middle daughter is a psychologist. And we have now engaged in, we're going to be doing some things starting this fall, some mentoring projects and so forth with our businesses. And so I'm just grateful for that. But to have my brother with me to join this show 2 years ago, and he's on the road a lot, and sometimes you hear me. If you don't like what's being talked, he's gonna find something else to do. But but he's with me tonight, and it was only fitting that he's here on National Siblings Day. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. You just saw him do it again, Kim.
That V is for Varner, and it's 3 of us. V3.
So we're the V3. So the 3rd brother is the middle, and he's a smart guy. Used to joke about him coming on and talking baseball, but he's far beyond baseball. Anthony can talk about anything. He's very sharp and intelligent, and he's
Marine.
Yeah,
he's Marine. So.
Ex-Marine. Yeah, he's a Marine. Well, not an
Marine. There's no ex-Marine.
Former Marine. You're right. I caught myself as soon as I said it. He's a former Marine. So we're going to get him on sometimes to talk about some things. But I'm just grateful. There is no affiliation that I'm a part of more than being a part of the V3. And I'm just grateful. That's the way our parents crafted us, and we're great to be together, and the good Lord fixed it that we can do this together. Madam Producer, thank you for putting up with us. All of you who have been, go ahead.
I just want to add that I feel the same way about my oldest brother, man. That's my go-to guy when I need somebody that I need to talk to. That's why I pick up the phone and call him. So he knows it. His wife knows it. My wife knows it. That's my go-to guy. I got some good friends, but my brother is my brother, and I ain't got to say no more about that. It's that blood thicker than water. So that's my dog. We nicknamed dog. That's my dog right there. So
We're gonna take time on National Siblings Day. We're gonna tell you this is what siblings supposed to be. We don't fuss and fight. Sometimes we might. It's funny we get together and Kim and I might team up and we'll be on Anthony, and then Anthony and Kim will turn the tables because they were the youngest. They used to be against me. So, but when it come push to shove, man, you don't want to mess with the V3 now. Okay, no, we pacifists. Okay. Hey, God bless. Thank you for joining us. Well, I'm glad to be back and glad to have Kim back with us tonight. Next week, we're going to talk about some of those laws that were passed in the Florida Senate. GoGigaCreations.com. Don't cheat yourself and not go to them. They make things happen. We'll see you next Monday night. This is Dialogue with Dozell. Peace.